Rite of Despondency is the debut EP from Solitary Ruin, a Portland, Oregon-based death doom metal band, and there's a little bit of funeral death doom in here too. There's a couple of qualifiers we'll kind of get to otherwise, but generally stating their goal is United States death doom of a certain era, maybe a little bit of UK death doom too, in terms of the early 90s. And in general, this is a band that bring heavy, slow, but classic death metal sounds into their work. Uh, Basically, this band started between folks who, the one that I do recognize is R. Koger, the vocalist drummer, who you'll know from Troll, and who are defunct for quite a while now, and Ossuarium, who also split up a while ago. And so, if you're a fan of Ossuarium, you should probably be the most excited about what this record is bringing, because they kind of had that classic death to metal sound too, but this is something a little bit different, and we'll kind of get there. But for now, let's just cut to a song, and I'll sort of explain like what this sounded like to me and why I'm so stoked on it. So when I say United States Death Doom, generally most people think of maybe like an early Cyanide album, Winter's first record, and it takes a while for like the big names to really pick up beyond that point. There's certainly Ceremonium. A few people think of Accidental Suicide, but that was an early group. And then we go on to bands like Dusk and Morgion, and from there, clearly you've got to start thinking about Evoken, right? At least by 1994 or so. And while you might think of them as a funeral doom metal band, they're certainly a death doom metal band. And when you see the name Solitary Ruin, if you're as much of a fan of Antithesis of Light as I am, you understand that's probably a reference to In Solitary Ruin. And the sound of this band reflects some clear taste in Evoken. And I think not so much the newer stuff, but the classic, I would say pre 2007 side of the band, and probably less so Quietus, because that's the keyboards are quite heavy on that record, and this is not really that style in a sense. So these guys also are fans of things like Mortiferum and Gorment. There's certainly a classic death doom sound there that has a heavier register, very down-tuned sound, but there's also a little bit of the British side of things in there too, where the Lost Paradise and Beyond stuff is there, maybe a little bit of Dance of December Souls here and there. So in a sense, so for me, the dramatic presentation here is evocative of both modern and old school death doom. Usually the type of stuff that is riff forward, that has quite a lot of guitar interest, generating both melody and heavier hooks. You don't have to listen to too much of what I have to say about this record. All that I would ask is that you go and listen to Corporeal Anguish. It really is one of the best songs I've heard all year. It is one of the best songs in Death Doom I've heard in a while. And I think that really sells the band and their potential going forward. I really hope it's something they focus on from this point, because that song is pretty intensive and very memorable, and it's not the only one on this EP. It's a pretty substantial EP. There's several songs here, and they kind of work through a couple different potential points of style. But man, Corporeal Anguish, and when that song hits, it's like, man, this tape is good, and it only gets better on repeat. So I was stoked about this record. I spent a lot of time with it. This is easily one of the best records or releases of August. It's a standout in terms of just death metal in general and death doom. We haven't heard a ton of truly great stuff this year, and this is definitely one of the ones that will stick with me. And it really builds up a lot of expectation for whatever they do next, because I think this is really pristine work. I wouldn't touch the production values. I think it's all just set so like it's professional, but it's also stylized in a specific way that feels very underground. I think it's a brilliant place to start with this band, and a very strong showing. So huge recommendation for me, a very high recommendation. Essential listening for this month if you're a fan of Death Doom, and check it out yourself. It's been out for a while, so otherwise read my review for a little bit more detail and coherence, and go from there.